The letter was already written by the time the kettle clicked off. Maren Avila sat at the small painted table in her kitchen, with her phone face up on the wood and a chipped white mug warming the heel of her hand, and read what she had just typed for the 7th time. The window above the sink was the color of wet stone. It was 6:20 on a Tuesday morning in May, and the only sound in the apartment was the building's old radiator, giving up heat it no longer needed, and a single delivery truck reversing in the alley behind the bodega downstairs. She could smell the coffee she had not yet poured, and underneath it, the faint ammonia of the floor cleaner she had used the night before. The screen said, "Dear Ms. Whitcomb, please consider this letter my formal resignation from Heartline Industries, effective immediately. I am asking to leave my position as Senior Operations Lead for the Brooklyn distribution floor, and I will not be working out the 2 weeks the handbook describes, because the handbook describes a workplace that no longer exists for me." Maren read the second paragraph. It was the one she had rewritten 6 times in the dark. It said, "For the last 11 months, I have watched our payslips be retroactively edited after a shift has closed, in a way that no full-time floor employee can audit, and that the union steward has been told is system reconciliation. It is not. It is the practice of paying people for fewer hours than they worked, after the fact, in increments small enough that no individual person will fight us for the cost of a single subway ride. I have raised this on 3 separate occasions in writing. I have your responses in 3 separate emails. I am leaving because I have understood, finally, that the responses were not delays. They were the policy." She moved her thumb to the 3rd paragraph, where the words still sounded too clean to be hers. "I am also leaving because of the safety walks. We do not do safety walks. We do the appearance of safety walks. The cones come out on the morning of the inspection. The strap is on the conveyor for the day of the visit. The day after, the strap is in the bin again because Quinn does not like the way it slows the line. I have watched men older than my father step around equipment that was meant to stop at their belt buckles, because the floor's idea of liability ends at the moment the inspector signs the page." The 4th paragraph she could only look at sideways. "I am leaving because 3 weeks ago you put me on a performance improvement plan for communication issues, within 20 minutes of my refusing, in your office, to sign a non-compete amendment that would have prevented me from working any logistics role in this borough for 2 years. I understood what the PIP was for. I understood that the next time you placed something on my desk and asked me to sign it, the implication would be the same. I am leaving on my own feet because I would like to leave on my own feet." There was a 5th paragraph that simply read, "I have copied my union steward, the floor's safety representative, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission of New York. I am taking the names of the workers who consented to be cited. The rest I am leaving out, because they cannot afford to be on this letter. Sincerely, Maren Avila." She breathed out through her nose. She pressed her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her throat, the small place she always pressed when she was about to say no out loud, and held it there. She could leave. She could close the lid of the phone and put it in the drawer with the cracked spatula and the wooden spoon her mother had given her at 22, and walk to the train, and sit at her desk at Heartline at 8:15, and let another month happen to her. She could let another quarter happen to her. She could find a way to keep paying her mother's rent and her own, and the medication. And she could pretend it was not the kind of price she had decided, at 19, she would not pay twice in one life. She did not close the lid. She tapped the address bar. QWI, said her thumb, and the phone offered her the line it was used to offering her, the line she had typed every single day for 4.5 years. q.whitcomb@heartline.com. She read it. She looked at it for the count of one slow breath. She thought about what she was about to do, and she pressed it. The phone hesitated, which phones do not really do, but it felt, to her, as though the small lit rectangle paused, the way a friend pauses before saying something kind. The address that bloomed into the to field was not the one she had read. It said q.whitcomb@heartlane.com. One letter. The I in Heartline traded for an A. She did not catch it. The apartment was dim. She had been awake since 4, and the letter she had written was already standing inside her chest, the way a sentence stands inside the mouth a half-second before it is spoken. The screen offered her the address with the same calm with which it offered her every other address that year. The week before, she had archived a memo from a defensive twin of her own company's domain, never examining whose company actually owned the lookalike. The phone, doing what phones do, had learned what she had taught it. It had learned the wrong thing. She read the body of the letter one more time. She did not read the address. She tapped send. For exactly 4 seconds, the apartment was the same apartment it had always been. The radiator hissed. The window held its grey light. The mug warmed the heel of her hand. Then a small chime from the phone informed her that the message had been delivered. And the apartment was a different apartment, because she did not work at Heartline Industries anymore. She set the phone down very carefully, the way a person sets down something they are not sure they want to pick up again. She did not cry. She had decided in advance she would not cry until the train. She poured the coffee. The radiator hissed. She had $304 in checking and $2,000 in the joint account she kept open for her mother, a 6-week buffer she had built by skipping every meal she could skip in March, and a sister-in-law in Queens who would lend her the deposit on a smaller place if it came to that. She would not call the sister-in-law unless it came to that, because dignity for Maren Avila had always been the difference between asking once and asking twice. She drank the coffee standing at the window. She watched the alley get a little less grey. She thought, idly, with the clean, strange thought of a person who has done one terrible, obvious thing and is about to do another, that she should probably eat something. Outside the window, a man with a hand truck rolled 3 sacks of flour down the loading ramp behind the bodega. The smell drifted up through the casement and made her think, against her will, of her mother folding the bakery apron on the kitchen table on the last Sunday the bakery was theirs, smoothing the cotton flat with both hands, the way a person sets something down for the last time. Maren put a hand on her own throat. The hand stayed. She thought, the way a person who has done one obvious thing thinks about whatever comes next, that whoever read that letter on the other end was about to have one of 2 reactions. They were going to either come for her in the way Quinn Whitcomb came for people who did not sign, with 3 faxed pages and a phone call and a non-disparagement at the end of it. Or they were going to do nothing at all, because that was the other option Heartline offered the women on its floor. There was, she thought, no third option. She finished the coffee. She rinsed the mug. She put on her coat. 190 miles of fiber-optic cable below the floor she walked on. The letter arrived, in fact, at a server farm in southern New Jersey, and bounced from there into a routing rule, and from there into a research inbox, monitored by a man who did not yet know her name. That man's name was Theo Voss, and at that moment, he was 7 miles north of the inbox, on the broad cement walkway that runs along the East River at Pier 6, watching the sun come up between 2 cranes, in a grey hoodie, with a small, worn brass pin clipped under his collar, finishing the 3rd mile of a 5-mile run. His phone vibrated in his palm, with the particular 2-beat pattern that meant a flagged message had hit the research alias. He did not stop running. He thumbed the screen open. He read the first paragraph, standing at the end of the pier, with his free hand on the iron railing. He read the second paragraph, sitting on the cold green bench halfway back. He read the 3rd paragraph twice. And then he read the 4th paragraph. And then he turned the phone over, face down on his knee, and looked out across the river at the place where the light was coming up over the Brooklyn skyline. And he did not move for some time. He took the small brass token out of his pocket and turned it over in his hand. It was a union pin, dull from being carried, 26 years old. His father's. He turned it the way he turned it when he was thinking. He turned it once. He turned it again. He did not say his father's name out loud. The phone rang in his other hand. He looked at it. It said, Ren. He sent it a voicemail. He stood up. He walked the rest of Pier 6 the long way, with the phone in his hand and the letter still on the screen, and read the 5th paragraph at the railing, where the path turns back. Then he stood for a minute longer with his eyes closed, listening to the gulls, which is a habit he had picked up from someone else a long time ago, and his thumb moved across the brass pin in his palm in a small, slow circle. Twice. Halfway home, he stopped at a small kiosk and bought a black coffee he did not really want, and called Ren back. "You're up early," he said. "You called me at 6:50, Ren said. "You're up earlier. What is it?" He told her. He told her the way he told her things, slowly, naming the specific concrete pieces. The 3rd paragraph, the part about payslips, the part about a performance improvement plan, signed 20 minutes after a refused non-compete, a floor in Brooklyn, a senior operations lead, whose name he had now seen at the bottom of an email she had not meant to send him. Heartline. Heart Lane. One letter. Ren was quiet for a long count. "Theo," she said. "Don't." He waited. "Don't reach out," she said. "I know you. I can hear you doing it from here. This letter is not yours. She didn't write it to you. The fact that you have it does not make it a piece of you." "I know," he said. "You're on the board's docket Friday," Ren said. "You have 90 hours. You stand up Friday and you read your own paper. You do not borrow a stranger's. You do not call a stranger at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday because her letter said the thing you have been failing to say in your own paragraphs for 9 months. That is not generosity. That is theft with a thank you note." "I know," he said. "Theo, I am not going to call her, Ren." "Are you going to write to her?" "I am not going to write to her." He listened to his sister breathe on the other end. She was wearing, he could tell, the dry expression she wore when she was about to make a joke that he would not laugh at for 2 days. She did not make it. She said instead, "Put your phone away. Go home. Take a shower. I will see you at the 8:30. "All right," he said. He put the phone in his pocket. He walked the rest of the way home with his hand around the brass pin and his eyes on the ground. He did not call. He did not write. When he reached his apartment, he set his keys in the small ceramic bowl by the entry, poured a glass of water at the sink, then walked into his study and took from a drawer the slim leather portfolio that held the white paper the Millridge board was going to vote on at noon on Friday. He laid the portfolio on the corner of the desk, and he laid Marin Avila's letter, printed out from his phone, on top of it. He laid them so the corners lined up. He did not read either of them again. He stood at the window for a long time. From the window he could see, if he looked straight east, the corner of the building where the Heartline distribution floor she had written the letter from kept its name in raised steel letters above a loading dock he had toured anonymously in February. He looked at the letters until they stopped being letters. He put the brass pin on top of the printed page. He went to take a shower. The 34th floor of the Millridge Tower had the wrong kind of quiet at 7 in the morning, and was a quiet you noticed because everybody on the floor below was already working, and you were the one person on this floor still allowed to choose. Theo Voss did not like the privilege of it most days. On the days he did like it, he did not say so. He sat in his study at the long oak desk he had not bought himself. Ren had bought it for him the year Millridge crossed 100 employees, on the grounds that the founder of a logistics reform firm could not keep working off a kitchen counter forever, and read the letter again. He read it slowly. He did not read for content this time. He read for the shape of the woman who had written it. He read for sentence length. He read for what she avoided. He read for what she did not flinch from saying outright. By the time he reached the 5th paragraph the second time, he was sure of 3 things, and he wrote them in his small grid notebook without looking up. She has been writing this letter for months. The fact that it left her hands at 6:17 on a Tuesday is the only thing that was unplanned. She did not write it for an audience. She wrote it for herself. There is no person in the letter she is performing for. She is not interested in being rescued. He underlined the 3rd line. He set the pen down. He picked up the brass pin. He turned it once. He put it back in his pocket. The 40-page draft of the Millridge Workplace Standard sat on the corner of the desk. He had been working on it since September, and on the 3rd paragraph of the 3rd section, called Wage Integrity, since February. He could draft the language for safety walk verification, for non-compete narrowing, for transparent severance ladders. His lawyers had drafted 6 versions for him to argue with. He had not been able to draft a sentence on retroactive payslip edits that did not read like a corporate evasion of the practice itself. He had read 3 Department of Labor briefs and 4 union grievances. He had not been able to write the paragraph. The woman whose letter had landed in his inbox at 6:17 had written that paragraph in 5 sentences. He stood up. He walked to the window. He thought about Wren's voice on the phone. He thought, separately, about a thing she had not said, that he would not have spent 9 months unable to write that paragraph if it had been about anyone other than his father. He set his hand against the glass. The glass was cold. The cold travelled into his palm, and from his palm into his wrist, and stayed there, where his pulse was. He walked back to the desk. He did not pick up the phone. He picked up the pen instead. He turned to a clean page in the grid notebook. He wrote, in his small, careful capitals, "I am not going to contact her." He underlined it. He folded the page in half. He put the folded page under the brass pin on top of the printed letter. At 7:50, he went down to the 8:30. The 8:30 was a thing Wren had instituted 3 years ago, after Millridge had hired its 100th employee, and Theo had stopped knowing names on the 2nd floor. A stand-up 40 minutes, coffee better than it needed to be, and a small table of fruit Wren ordered because Theo would otherwise eat nothing until 2. He stood at the back. He let other people talk. He listened. He drew a small square in the margin of his notebook for every concrete thing he heard. He liked it because it was unromantic, because it forced the company to be a company in front of him for 40 minutes a day, and not a thing he was supposed to be on behalf of his late father. Wren caught him on the way out. She had not slept well. She had the dry register he knew from his teenage years, which was the register she used when she was about to tell him something that was true, and that he would not like. "You did not call her," she said. "I did not call her." "You will not call her." "I will not call her." "You read it again." I read it again. She did not say anything for a moment. They stood in the small alcove where the espresso machine made the same useless hiss it had been making for 2 years. Then she said, in her ordinary voice, "Read it on Friday, anonymously. Read the paragraph and credit no person. Read the paragraph because the paragraph is true, and the paragraph is the language you have been trying to find. Sit down. Do not call her. Do not write to her. Do not show up at her door. Do you understand me?" He looked at his sister. "I understand you," he said. "Theo, promise me." "I promise you, Wren." She put her hand on his elbow for 1 short second, which was the most she ever did, and then she walked away, to be furious in a different office, where she would not be furious at him out loud. He went back upstairs. He sat at the desk. He put the printed letter in a drawer. He worked on his own paragraphs. At 11:40 he found himself, against the standing instruction he had given himself an hour earlier, looking at the public LinkedIn profile of one Maren Avila, of Heartline Industries, Brooklyn distribution floor, senior operations lead. 4.5 years at Heartline. 3 years before that, at the Sunset Park Central Kitchens of a community-supported food rescue. 2 years before that, at a community college in Brooklyn, where her first photograph as a student worker was of a girl with her hair pulled back and her chin set, and a stack of folded white aprons under one arm. He looked at the photograph for the length of one slow exhale. He did not click anything. He closed the tab. He picked up the brass pin. He turned it. He did not call her. The first thing Maren saw when she walked onto the Heartline floor at 7:58, before her resignation had been read by anyone at Heartline Industries at all, was Thomas Reyes, leaning against the back of the dispatch desk, with both hands wrapped around a paper cup. He was 61 that month, by his own quiet count and the floor's louder one. He had been a floor supervisor at Heartline for 11 years, and at the freight company Heartline had bought before that for 8. He had 3 grandchildren, a knee that hurt when it rained, and a habit of registering significant events with one short sentence. He looked at her over the rim of his cup. He said. "Why are you here?" "I work here, T," she said. That tracks. Why are you actually here?" "I came," she said, "to clean out my locker before 9. He took a long pull on the cup. He set it down. He did not change expression. "Quinn came in at 7:15, he said. "She has the door closed." Said Maren, who had picked the sound up from him over 4.5 years and never quite given it back. "She is not in a kind mood." She has not been in a kind mood since February of 2 years ago. "That tracks. Did you sleep?" "I slept enough." "You did not sleep enough. Go put your bag down. Do not go past her door. There is a fresh box of latex gloves on the dispatcher's shelf because the order finally came through. Take 3. I do not want a story later about whose fingerprints were on the inside of your locker." "Yes." "Yes," she said, before she caught herself. The yes meant something to both of them. It meant, "I do not know if I can do this." It meant, "I am going to do it anyway." It meant, "I am very tired." Thomas heard all 3 meanings. He did not press them. He gave her the small flat nod he gave her when they were in agreement about something they did not want to say out loud, and she walked past him toward the back of the floor, with her bag against her hip, and she did not look at the closed door of the office at the end of the hallway with the brass nameplate. She had been in her locker for 90 seconds when the door at the end of the hallway opened. Quinn Whitcomb was 39, which everyone on the floor knew because the program at her father's birthday lunch in March had listed her age beside her name in the same italic Heartline house font as her job title. She wore a charcoal jacket with the sleeves pushed up in the practiced way of a woman who had learned that sleeves pushed up signaled rolled-up urgency. She had on her face the expression Thomas Reyes called, "preparing to make a generous gesture." She walked the dispatch hallway at a pace deliberately not quite fast enough to be a march, and stopped 4 paces from Maren's open locker, with one administrative assistant and the floor's new HR director in tow. "Maren," Quinn said, in a voice loud enough to cross the floor, "I'm so glad I caught you. Could we step into my office for a minute? I have a piece of paper that I think will make a lot of things easier for both of us." Maren did not turn around. She had her hand inside the locker, on the second from top shelf, where there was a small wooden picture frame with a photograph of her mother as a young woman holding a tray of bread. "Could the piece of paper be a final paycheck?" she said, "and the address of the office where I retrieved the W-2 in January?" The hallway got quiet. The new HR director, whose name was Adelaide Park and who had been in the job 9 working days, made a small sound that was not quite a word. The administrative assistant did not move. Thomas Reyes, who had not followed them down the hall, but was visible through the open dispatch doorway 30 feet away, had set his cup down and was watching them with both hands hanging loose at his sides. Quinn smiled. Quinn was very good at smiling. "Maren," she said, "we don't have to do this here." "You are doing this here, Quinn. I'm cleaning out a locker. You came down the hall." "There's a performance improvement plan on your desk. I'd like you to sign it." "There has been a performance improvement plan on my desk for 3 weeks. I have not signed it. I am not going to sign it. I am cleaning out a locker." "Maren." "I am cleaning out a locker." Quinn's smile did not change shape. The smile she had on her face had been on her face for as long as anyone on the floor could remember. The smile was, Thomas Reyes had once said, in a voice low enough that nobody had been sure he had really said it, the only piece of furniture in the office. She put her hands lightly together in front of her sternum. "You're going to want to be very careful about how you leave this building," she said. "I have not yet signed the non-disparagement amendment. I have not yet signed the severance ladder. I am, frankly, the only thing standing between you and a separation that is going to be a great deal more unpleasant than it needs to be." "Frankly," said Maren, "I have already left this building, Quinn. I left it at 6:17 this morning. I am collecting personal property." She lifted the picture frame out of the locker. She slid it into the canvas bag at her hip. She lifted out a single key on a leather fob, a worn paperback she had been reading on lunch breaks for 3 months, a small ceramic dish she had used as a coin holder, and an envelope with the floor safety representative's name written across it in her own careful capitals. The envelope she set, very deliberately, on top of the lockers, not into the bag. "Anita," she said to the safety rep, who had emerged from the dispatch office without anyone having asked her to. "There is an envelope for you on top of locker 41. Please retrieve it before lunch. There are 3 documents inside. 2 of them are addressed to you. The 3rd is addressed to the regional safety inspector. I would like you to call her yourself. I would like the call to come from a person who still works here, please." "Maren," said Quinn, more softly. The smile had shifted. The smile had moved from generous gesture to dealing with a difficult child. "Don't do this. Don't do this to me." Maren closed the locker. She turned the dial. She turned to face Quinn for the first time, and she pressed her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her own throat, and she held it there. "I am not doing anything to you, Quinn," she said quietly. "I am leaving. The doing already happened. You did it. I just stopped working inside it." She walked past Quinn Whitcomb down the dispatch hallway, past Adelaide Park, who had taken a slow step backward, past the safety rep, who was looking at the top of locker 41 with both eyebrows lifted, past Thomas Reyes, who lifted his paper cup 1 inch in salute and said nothing, through the door of the floor that had her name on a directory under the heading Senior Operations Lead, down 2 flights of stairs, across the loading bay where a forklift was beeping in reverse, out the side door. She walked the 4 blocks to the train without crying, because she had decided in advance that she would not cry until the train. She cried on the train. She did not yet know that the letter she had written had not arrived at Heartline Industries at all. The apartment her mother lived in was on the 2nd floor of a 4-story walk-up on a quiet block in Sunset Park, above a tailor's and a small fish market, whose owner, Nora Avila, had known since the year she had arrived in Brooklyn. The walk from the train to the building was 8 blocks. Maren walked it slowly, because she did not want to arrive at her mother's apartment with her face still set the way it had been set on the train. She bought a small bunch of marigolds from the bodega on the corner, because her mother liked marigolds, and because the marigolds gave her hands something to hold that was not the canvas bag with the picture frame in it. Her mother opened the door before she had finished knocking. Nora Avila was 61, thin in the wrists, with a long grey braid over one shoulder and the small permanent flour stain on her left forearm that had survived 11 years of bakery work and 22 years away from one. She wore a cardigan the color of a wet stone and a pair of soft slippers, and an expression that said she had heard everything she needed to hear about the day already by the angle of her daughter's shoulders coming up the stairs. "Mija," she said. She did not say it as a question. "Mama, you eat. We talk after." She did not let Maren put the canvas bag down. She took the marigolds out of Maren's left hand and put them in a juice glass and set the juice glass on the kitchen table. She put Maren in a chair. She put a plate of rice and beans and a small bowl of warm chicken broth in front of her and watched, with her arms folded, until Maren had eaten 1/3 of the rice. Then she sat down across from her daughter with her own small glass of water, and she did not ask. She waited. Maren told her, not in the order it had happened, in the order it came up. The locker, the safety rep, the envelope on top of locker 41, the way Quinn Whitcomb's smile had shifted shape 3 times in 30 seconds. Thomas. Last, the letter, and the way she had written it at the painted table at 6 in the morning, and the way she had pressed send, and the fact that she had set the phone face down on the kitchen counter when she got home because she did not want to see what came back. She did not tell her mother about the $304 in checking. There were things her mother did not need to be told. Her mother listened. When Maren was done, her mother said, "You ate enough?" "Mama." "You ate enough?" "Yes." "Good. Then we wash the plate. Then we sit. Then we see." They washed the plate. They sat. They saw. The phone rang at 7 minutes past 8 in the evening, in the small front room where her mother's couch was, with the lamp on, with the window open enough to hear the fish market man on the street below pulling down his metal gate for the night. Maren had set her phone on the side table to charge. The number on the screen was not a number she knew. It was a 212 area code. It was 11 digits long. It rang 4 times. Maren did not pick it up. The voicemail tone, when it came, was the soft 2-note chime her phone made when a message had arrived. She did not play it for an hour. She and her mother watched the end of a Spanish-language game show on the small television and ate 2 pieces of marzipan each. The marzipan was her mother's. The marzipan had been her mother's since 1989. The marzipan had become, on the night of a difficult day, the household's standard medicine. At 20 past 9, with her mother washing the marzipan tin, Maren picked up the phone. She played the message on speaker because her mother was in the kitchen, which was 4 steps away, and because she did not want to hold whatever it was alone to her ear. The voice on the other end was a man's voice. It was quieter than she had braced for. It did not begin with a name. It did not begin with a position. It began in the middle of its own sentence, the way the voice of a man who has thought for a long time about what he is going to say begins, when the man is no longer young enough to think a phone message is the moment to practice. "My name is Theo Voss," the message said. "I am the founder of Mile Ridge Group. At 6:17 this morning, a letter came into one of our research aliases. It was addressed to your supervisor. It arrived because one letter of a domain name is different. I read it. I would like you to know 2 things. The first, I am not going to do anything with the letter you have not asked me to do. The second is the 3rd paragraph, the part about payslips. I would like to know, if you are willing, what you would tell me if I asked whether that paragraph means what I think it means. You can erase this message. You can also call this number any time before Friday afternoon. After that, I will not need the answer. Thank you for your time." The message ended. The kitchen was quiet. Her mother had turned off the tap. Maren did not look up. She was looking at the screen of her phone. The screen of her phone showed the number and the length of the message, 51 seconds, and a small grey button that said, "Call back." Her mother came and stood beside the couch with the marzipan tin in her hand and the clean dish towel over her shoulder. Her mother did not sit. Her mother said, in the voice she used for the household's standard medicine. "Mija, who is this man?" "He says he is the founder of Millridge Group." "He says he is. Who is he?" "He is the founder of Millridge Group, Mama. They are a logistics company. They have offices in Manhattan. They have an industry white paper coming out on Friday on workplace standards. I have read articles about him." Her mother sat. Her mother folded the dish towel into a square on her own knee and folded it again and set it down. "He read your letter." "Yes." "By mistake." "Yes." Her mother looked at her for a long count. Her mother had eyes the color of a wet cobblestone, and the patience of a woman who had run a night bakery in a borough that had not always wanted her in it. And she did not blink very often, and when she blinked, she did so the way a person blinks when she is choosing carefully whether to put the things she is about to say into the world. "You are not going to call him tonight," she said. "No, Mama." "You will sleep. We sleep. We see in the morning." "Yes." "Do not erase the message." Maren looked at her. "Do not erase the message," her mother said again, more gently. "Not tonight. Not yet. We do not know yet whether it is the kind of message a person should keep. We do not erase a thing until we know. Yes. Yes, Mama." She slept on her mother's couch, under the thin, strapped quilt Nora Avila had carried with her from a town 2 hours south of Quito in 1982, and had since used to fold itself around a daughter's grief approximately once every 5 years. Maren did not erase the message. She did not call the number back. She did not pick up the second call either, which arrived at 6:52 on Thursday morning, also from a 212 area code, also unfamiliar. She listened to that voicemail too, in the kitchen, with her mother already standing at the stove with a small frying pan and an egg. The second message was shorter than the first. "This is Theo Voss again," the second message said. "I will not call again after this. I will be at your address this evening at 7 o'clock. I will not knock on your door if you do not open it. I will leave the page on the door. I am not bringing a job offer. I am bringing one paragraph. If you tell me you do not want the paragraph on your door, I will not put it on your door. The phone number that I am calling from is the number you can text me. Thank you." Her mother turned the egg. Her mother did not speak. Her mother set the egg on a plate. Her mother put the plate in front of Maren on the kitchen table. "He has your address, Mija. He has the address Heartline had for me. This is the address. I have been at this address since March." I know, Mama. He is coming tonight. He says he is coming tonight. He will not knock if you do not open the door. That is what he says. You will not open the door. I do not know." Her mother looked at her for a long count. "Eat," her mother said. Maren ate. The egg was warm and salty, and tasted faintly of the cumin her mother kept in a small jar on the windowsill, and of the cast iron pan, which was 41 years old that month. The kitchen smelled of cumin, and the warm iron smell that came up through the floor from the tailor's downstairs, and very faintly of marigolds. Maren held the small juice glass with the marigolds in her left hand, and ate the egg with her right hand, and did not, for the length of 2 slow breaths, think about anything at all. She did not text the number. She did not call. At 12 minutes past 7 that evening, the buzzer beside the apartment door rang. She did not press the buzzer. She stood very still in the small hallway, with the strip of brown felt that her mother had nailed along the bottom of the front door against the winter drafts, and she watched the small black plastic intercom on the wall, as though the intercom were the man, and the man were the intercom. The intercom did not buzz a second time. There was a pause of perhaps 4 seconds. Then the intercom said, in the same quiet voice she had heard on the voicemail, slightly disrupted by the small box, and slightly larger because of the cement of the stairwell. "Maren, it is Theo Voss. I am here. I will wait 2 minutes. If you do not come downstairs, I will leave the page in the metal box on the wall by the inside door, and I will go. I am not coming up." There was no pause for a reply. The intercom went silent. From inside the apartment, through the open kitchen door, she could hear her mother washing a plate with the methodical, slow tempo of a woman who had decided not to listen on her daughter's behalf. Maren did not go downstairs. She did not go to the kitchen window, although it faced the street and would have shown her the back of a man standing on the front stoop in the May twilight, beside a small black duffel bag and a folded sheet of paper. She did not go because she had decided, in the 4 seconds between the intercom going silent and her next breath, that she did not want to see what he looked like. Not yet. Not because she was afraid. Because she did not yet know which version of him she would have to remember tomorrow. And she did not want a picture of a face to do that work without her permission. She pressed her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her own throat and held it there for a slow count of 10. 2 minutes was not very long. She heard, faintly, 2 minutes happen. She heard the small click of a metal box being opened in the downstairs vestibule and closed again. She heard a car door on the street. She heard the car door close. She did not hear an engine. She heard footsteps walking away from the building in the direction of the avenue, neither hurried nor slow. 3 blocks of footsteps, until she did not hear them any more. She waited another minute by the door. She did not know why. Then she went downstairs. The vestibule of the building had 4 metal mailboxes on the wall beside the inside door, and a small flat panel for flyers, and a yellowed enamel sign that nobody had taken down in 26 years, informing tenants that the building did not accept deliveries after 8. The page was in the metal box marked Avila/2. It was a single sheet, folded once, with her name written on the outside in a small, careful handwriting that she did not need a sample of to know was the handwriting of the same man whose voice she had played twice on her phone. She took the page upstairs. She did not unfold it on the stairs. She did not unfold it in the kitchen, where her mother had finished the plate and was now setting a clean dish towel over the cooling pan. She unfolded it on the painted table by the window in the front room, where the lamp was on. It was the 3rd section of the white paper, photocopied from a typed draft. There were 4 paragraphs on the page. He had circled the 3rd. He had circled it lightly, in pencil, with a single neat line. In the margin he had written, in the same careful handwriting, "I do not know if this paragraph means what I think it means. If you tell me what it should say, I will say what it should say on Friday at noon, and I will not credit you in the room or out of it. If you tell me to put the paragraph back in the drawer, I will put it back in the drawer. I am not asking for anything else. T." She read the paragraph. It was the paragraph about retroactive payslip edits. It was the paragraph she had written, in her own letter, the day before. Only it was not her paragraph. It was a longer paragraph, careful, lawyered, threaded with phrases like auditable transparency, and good faith remediation, and with appropriate notice to the affected employee. It was a paragraph that meant, when she read it through twice, that the practice would be reportable but not stopped, that an employee would be told after the fact, that the company doing it would have a window inside which to make it right before it became actionable. She set the page down on the painted table. She did not move. The kitchen behind her was quiet. Her mother had stopped putting dishes away. Her mother was standing in the doorway with one hand on the frame, watching her. "Mija," her mother said. "What does it say?" "It says the right thing in the wrong language." It says he is going to stand up in a room of people on Friday and say a sentence that is going to sound like the sentence I wrote, except the sentence is going to mean something different. It says the practice should be allowed to exist as long as it is reported. It says the practice should be allowed to exist. He wrote this. He wrote this. He wants me to tell him what it should say instead." Her mother did not move from the doorway. "You are going to write him." "Mama, you are going to write him because you have already written the thing he is asking you to write. You wrote it yesterday morning. He is not asking you for a thing. He is asking you for a thing you have already done. And if you do not give him the thing you have already done, he will stand up in a room on Friday and say a sentence that is going to sound like yours, and the sentence is going to mean something different. And the floor where you used to work will go on stripping the strap off the conveyor on the day after the inspection, and the women on the floor will go on getting paid in increments small enough that no individual person will fight us for the cost of a single subway ride." Maren turned to look at her mother. Her mother had not moved. Her mother's eyes were the color of a wet cobblestone. The kitchen lamp behind her was making a small, bright halo around the edges of her grey braid. "Mama," she said, "he's the founder of a company. He has a board. He has a publicist. He has, somewhere, a press release in a drawer with my name on it that he has not used. I do not know him. I do not know what he is going to do with anything I send him. The last time I trusted a person with money to be careful with a piece of my life, I was 19 years old, and we lost the storefront a week before Christmas. I do not have it in me to lose another piece this way." Her mother walked across the room. Her mother sat down beside her on the couch. Her mother took her hand, the one Maren had been pressing into her own throat, and uncurled it gently, finger by finger, and held it in her own hand on her own knee. "Mija," her mother said, "you are not 19. I know. You are not me. Mama, listen. You are not me. I lost the storefront because I trusted the wrong man on the wrong piece of paper. You are not standing on a piece of paper. You are standing in a kitchen. You are not signing anything tonight. You are writing one paragraph. The paragraph you wrote yesterday is still in your hand. You write it again. You send it to him. You watch what he does with it on Friday. If he is the man he says he is, the paragraph means what it should mean at noon. If he is the man I have already lost 4 of in my own life, it means a different thing. And then you and I know what we know. You do not lose anything by sending one paragraph you have already written. You do not lose anything by watching." Maren looked at the page on the painted table. "I do not want to be the woman whose paragraph this is," she said. "I do not want my paragraph to be the reason a man with a publicist gives a speech on Friday." Then write it in a way that is not his. Write it in a way that makes it impossible for him to give a speech with your paragraph." "Mama," Mija, he asked you a question. You answer the question." Maren sat very still for a long minute. Her mother's hand stayed on her knee. The lamp was warm. The window was open onto the street. Somewhere 2 blocks east, a child was being called inside in Mandarin. Somewhere 1 block north, a delivery scooter was idling at a light. The kitchen smelled, very faintly, of marigolds and of the cast iron pan. She breathed in, slowly. She breathed out. She picked up the pencil her mother kept in the chipped clay mug on the painted table. She turned the page over. She wrote, on the back of the photocopy, in her own small, careful capitals, "The paragraph should not exist. The practice should not be reportable. The practice should be illegal, under the company's own internal standard, and any payslip edit after a shift has closed should require, before the edit is made, the written consent of the affected employee, not their notification, and not their good faith remediation. There is no version of this practice that is acceptable with notice. If you cannot say that on Friday, do not stand up. Put the paragraph back in the drawer. M.A." She read it back. She did not soften it. She folded the page in half. She put the page in an envelope. She wrote his number on the outside of the envelope, beside a small note that said, "I would like this back by Saturday. I am keeping it." She did not text the number. She did not call. She put on her coat. She walked the page down to the street and around the corner and 3 blocks east to the small all-night copy shop, where the man behind the counter knew her by sight, and she paid him $4 to put the page in a courier envelope and send it by bonded same-evening service to the lobby of the Mile Ridge Tower on West 57th Street, with instructions that the envelope be held for Theo Voss and signed for by Theo Voss only. She walked home in the May air, with both hands in the pockets of her coat. She walked the long way. By the time she got back to her mother's apartment, the kitchen lamp had been turned off, and the lamp in the front room had been turned on, and her mother was sitting in the lamp's circle with a small, dog-eared book of poetry in Spanish that had been on the same shelf for 26 years. "It is sent," Maren said. Her mother said. "Then we wait." The Millridge mailroom called Theo's assistant at 10:20 on Thursday night to confirm that the bonded envelope had been signed for at the lobby desk by a person matching the name on the recipient field. By 11:12, the envelope was on his desk in the study at the apartment on the 34th floor of the tower. By 11:20, the page was open on the desk under the lamp, with the brass pin on top of it, where the folded note had been the morning before. Theo Voss read what Maren Avila had written on the back of the photocopy 3 times. He did not move between readings. He held the page lightly at the upper corners, the way a man holds a photograph he does not want to put a fingerprint on. He read the last line, and the line above it, and the first line, in that order. He set the page down. He took off his glasses. He rubbed his thumb across the brass pin. "If you cannot say that on Friday, do not stand up." He sat at the desk for 14 minutes by the clock, without opening any other document, and he did not call Wren, and he did not write a reply to Maren Avila on the back of any photocopy of his own. He pulled the 3rd section of the white paper out of the leather portfolio. He found paragraph 3. He drew a single, neat pencil line through it. He wrote, in the white margin beside it, in capitals, the same size as the capitals on the back of Maren's page, "No retroactive edits without written employee consent." He did not soften it. He did not add a comma where the lawyers would want a comma. He closed the portfolio. He went to bed. He did not sleep. He got up at 4. He drank a glass of water at the kitchen counter, standing up. He looked at the small, folded note that said, "I am not going to contact her," in his own capitals, which was still on the corner of the desk. He picked the note up. He put the note in the desk drawer. He shut the drawer. He went for a run. Friday morning at Heartline began the way most Heartline mornings began, except that the door of the office at the end of the dispatch hallway opened at 6:45 instead of 7:15. And Quinn Whitcomb stood inside the office for 9 minutes by herself before she came out. She came out with a piece of paper in her hand. She did not look at it. She walked the length of the dispatch hallway with the paper held loosely against her thigh and stopped in the open doorway of the dispatch office, where Thomas Reyes was standing with both hands wrapped around a paper cup, and Adelaide Park stood 2 paces behind him with a small notebook. "Tea," Quinn said. "Could you ask Maren Avila to come in this morning? Could you call her at her mother's apartment and ask her to come in this morning? There is a piece of paper she needs to retrieve in person. I would like to make sure the floor is honored for what she did here. I would like to offer her a graceful exit." That tracks. Tomas Reyes did not move. He had been a floor supervisor for 19 years. He had taken 3 calls in the past hour from people he had hired himself. 2 had been from women on the second shift who had been told overnight, through Adelaide Park's borrowed authority, that they would not be working Friday because the floor was reviewing scheduling. The 3rd had been from the safety rep, who had explained, in the careful, flat voice of a woman who had walked her envelope into a regional office on Wednesday morning, that the regional inspector had received a letter and was scheduled to be at Heartline at 9 on Tuesday of the following week, unannounced and with a clipboard. Thomas Reyes looked at Quinn Whitcomb in the open doorway of the dispatch office. He looked at her for a length of time that was longer than was comfortable. Quinn, he said. T. I am 61 years old. T. I'm not going to call a woman who has resigned in writing on Tuesday morning and ask her to come down to a building on Friday morning to retrieve a piece of paper that her former supervisor would like her to sign. I am not the floor's process server. I am the floor's dispatcher. Yes. Yes, Quinn said, and her voice cracked a small, unfamiliar way at the edge of the word. She walked back down the hallway. She closed the door of the office at the end of the dispatch hallway. Adelaide Park looked at Tomas Reyes. Tomas Reyes looked at Adelaide Park. Adelaide Park said, very quietly, Mr. Reyes, I would like, when you have a minute, to talk. He said. After lunch, I have a forklift to certify. By 9:15, however, Quinn Whitcomb had done something Tomas Reyes had not anticipated. She had called the floor's 3 administrative assistants into her office, one at a time, and handed each a printout forwarded to her overnight by a contact she did not name. The page was a paragraph that had appeared an hour earlier on the website of a small trade publication covering logistics and warehouse policy in the New York metropolitan region. It was, almost word for word, the paragraph Marin had sent to Theo by bonded courier on Thursday evening, attributed in the article to an internal source familiar with practices at a major Brooklyn borough distribution operation. Quinn Whitcomb did not yet know who the internal source was. She had a guess. The guess sat in her throat in the same place Marin Avila pressed her own thumb when she was about to say no. By 10 o'clock, Quinn had drafted a memo. The memo was 3 lines long. It said that Heartline Industries was made aware, this morning, of an unauthorized disclosure of internal procedure to an external publication. It said that the company would be evaluating whether the disclosure constituted a breach of the non-disparagement clause that had been signed by a recently separated employee. It said that Heartline reserved its rights. Quinn Whitcomb did not check the file. The recently separated employee in question had never signed the non-disparagement clause. The memo went to her father, who was on a flight from London. The memo was forwarded by her father's chief of staff, by a courtesy he did not realize he was doing nobody, to the legal department, who flagged the memo as premature, and then, in the same email, to a junior assistant in PR, who flagged the memo as actionable, and then, in the same email, to Ren Voss, who was on the board of a Labour policy roundtable that quietly tracked Heartline's PR moves, and who had been a guest on a podcast with Heartline's outside counsel in February. Ren read the email at 10:31. Ren called her brother at 10:32. Theo, she said. Ren. Sit down. I am sitting. Heartline has put out a memo this morning that suggests that Marin Avila is the source of a paragraph that ran on a trade publication this morning. The paragraph that ran on the trade publication this morning is the paragraph that you have not yet read in your own board meeting. The paragraph that ran on the trade publication this morning is, almost word for word, the paragraph that I assume you wrote in the white margin of Section 3 after a bonded courier arrived at your apartment at 11 last night. Theo, did you give that paragraph to Maeve Carlin at the trade publication? There was a long count of silence. No, he said. Then who did? I do not know. The paragraph was not in any file I shared with anyone. It was in pencil, in my study, on a draft. Theo, did you tell anyone the paragraph existed? I told you it existed 12 minutes ago. Did the bonded courier company photocopy the page on the way? No, bonded couriers do not photocopy. Then somebody at Heartline got to Maeve Carlin overnight with their own version of the paragraph because they had heard a rumor that a paragraph existed. Theo. Ren, I know what you are about to say. I am not going to do that. I am not going to stand up in a room at noon and read a paragraph that has been on a trade publication's website since 6 in the morning, anonymously sourced. The room will think we placed it there. The room will think Maren Avila placed it there. The room will think she wrote the paragraph because we asked her to write the paragraph. I am not going to do that. Then what are you going to do? There was a long count of silence. Then he said, in a voice she did not recognize, I am going to read the paragraph anyway. Theo, I am going to read the paragraph. Because the paragraph is true. I will credit no person in the room. I will read it the way she wrote it on the back of the page, not the way Maeve Carlin printed it. I will tell the room I read it because a person who does not work for me, and never will, sent me one page on the back of a photocopy, and the meeting is the only room I have. Then I am going to call Maren Avila and tell her, before she hears it from anyone else, exactly what I did and which sentence of hers I used, and ask her, after the fact, if she wants me to retract anything. I will retract it if she says retract. I will lose the vote if I have to. Ren, stop telling me to be smart. His sister was quiet for a long count. You are an idiot, she said. Ren, you are an idiot, and you are going to lose the vote, and we are going to have a very expensive month, and I am going to be at the door of the conference room at 11:45 with the coffee you don't drink, because today is the day you actually need it. Theo. Ren, promise me one thing. What? You make the call to her before lunch, not after. Before, not after. Before the press cycle reaches her phone. Promise me that, at least. I promise you that. He hung up. He sat at the desk. He turned the brass pin in his hand once, twice, 3 times. He read the paragraph on the back of the photocopy of Section 3 one more time. He did not read it for the language. He read it for the woman. He read it for the woman who had walked a sealed envelope to an all-night copy shop on a Thursday night because she did not want the paragraph to live in a phone message. And he read it for the woman in the kitchen behind her, with the long grey braid and the flour stain on her left forearm, who had told her daughter, on the night of a difficult day, that they would write the paragraph and watch what was done with it. He read it for both of them. He closed the portfolio. He stood up. He put the brass pin in his pocket. He went down to the conference room on the 14th floor, where his board was waiting for him, and his sister was at the door at 11:45 with the coffee he did not drink, and he walked into the room. There were 19 people in the conference room. There were 12 members of the Millridge board, 2 outside counsel, 3 people from the company's policy team, Ren, and a young woman from the secretariat, with her laptop open and her hands resting on the edge of the keys. The long table had 19 glasses of water and 19 folded copies of the white paper agenda, and the air had the particular still quality that a high-floor conference room takes on after the air conditioning has been running for an hour and the windows have not been opened. Theo took the chair at the head of the table. He set the leather portfolio in front of him. He did not open it. I would like to make an unscheduled disclosure before we begin, he said. I would like to make it on the record. It will affect how the board reads paragraph 3, section 3. I would prefer to make it now rather than at the end. The outside counsel on his right, a man named Charles Brand, who had drafted 6 versions of the non-compete narrowing for him in March, looked up from his own glass of water. The chair of the audit committee, a woman named Pilar Aguilar, set down her pen. On the record, Theo, said Pilar. 26 hours ago, he said. A letter came into one of our research aliases. A resignation letter from a senior operations lead at a Brooklyn logistics company. It arrived because one letter of a domain name is different. It described 4 practices on the floor she was leaving. One was retroactive payslip edits without employee consent. I read it. I called her, left 2 voicemails. On Thursday evening, I went to her mother's apartment in Sunset Park and asked her, through an intercom, what one paragraph of Section 3 should say. I told her I would not name her in the room or out of it. She sent back a paragraph, in her own handwriting, by bonded courier last night. I am holding the page. He opened the portfolio. He laid the photocopy of Section 3 on the table. He laid Marin Avila's page beside it, blank side up, with her handwriting visible to the people closest to him. This morning at 6, he said. A paragraph appeared on the website of a trade publication that follows the logistics and warehouse sector. Attributed to an internal source at a major Brooklyn operator, it is almost word for word the paragraph this woman wrote on the back of Section 3, 12 hours earlier. I did not give that paragraph to the publication. She did not. Somebody at the operator she resigned from did, because they had heard a paragraph existed and wanted to control its appearance. What appeared is not her version. It is, almost word for word, an earlier draft I had typed under the lamp on Thursday afternoon, before I read her page. I would like Mr. Brand to find out how they obtained it. Charles Brand made a small, precise notation on his pad. The decision before the board, Theo said, is whether Section 3, as drafted, will be the binding internal standard of Mealridge, and whether we release it Monday. The decision before me is different. It is whether I read paragraph 3 as the lawyers drafted it, or the way this woman has written it on the back of this page. I have decided. I will read her version. I will not say her name. I will lose the vote, because her paragraph requires written employee consent before any retroactive payslip edit, in a binding standard the lawyers have not yet reviewed. I would like the loss on the record, so the next vote, in October, is on her sentence and not on theirs. And so my sister can issue a statement on Monday that says, in plain English, what I'm about to read into the minutes. Let the loss stand. He looked down at Marin Avila's handwriting on the back of the photocopy. He read paragraph 3 the way she had written it. He read the sentence about no retroactive edits without written employee consent in capitals, slowly, with his hand flat on the table beside the page. He did not look up between sentences. When he was done, he set the page down. He looked at Pilar Aguilar. Madam Chair, he said, I move that Section 3 of the White Paper, as just read into the record, be adopted as the binding internal standard of the Mealridge Group, effective Monday at 9. Pilar Aguilar looked at him for a long count. She looked at Charles Brand. She looked at Wren, who was leaning against the wall by the door, with the cup of coffee Theo had not touched on the small side table beside her elbow. I will second the motion, said Pilar Aguilar. I would like to make a few remarks before we vote. I would also like, for the record, to note that I am seconding the motion as written and read. She made her remarks in the careful, unhurried voice of a woman who had chaired 3 boards and been CFO of a 4th, and who had not, in any of them, ever lost a vote on the side she had said she wanted to win. The board voted. The motion failed 7-5, with 1 abstention. It failed because Charles Brand had voted no, because the language could not be the binding internal standard with that wording in it, because the directors' and officers' insurance would not cover the resulting exposure inside a single quarter, and because 3 of the 7 business line members had not been given time to read the change. The reasons were honest. The vote was honest. It went on the record exactly as Theo Voss had asked. He thanked the room. He walked out of the conference room at 12:46. He went up to the 34th floor. He sat at the desk. He picked up the phone. He called Marin Avila on the number that had answered the buzzer she had not pressed the night before. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was the voice of a woman who had been awake since 4 and who had been watching, on her mother's small television, a live stream from a trade publication's website that was running, with a delay of perhaps 3 minutes, a paraphrase of what was happening in a conference room on the 14th floor of a tower at West 57th Street. Mr. Voss, she said. Marin, he said, I owe you a phone call before you hear this from anyone else. I read your paragraph in the meeting. I read it the way you wrote it on the back of the page, not the way the trade publication printed it this morning. I did not name you in the room. I lost the vote. The vote is on the record. I would like to tell you, before you have to hear it from a journalist, exactly which of your sentences I used." He told her. He read his way through it, sentence by sentence. He did not embellish. He did not apologize. He named her sentences in the order he had read them, and he stopped at the end. There was a long count of silence. "Mr. Voss," she said. "Mr. Voss is my father," he said. "Theo, please. I am not going to call you Theo this afternoon." "All right." "You did not ask me before you read it." "No." "You asked me what the paragraph should say. You did not ask me whether you could read what I said into a board meeting." "No, I did not." "Why?" There was a long count of silence on his end. Then he said, "Because I made the decision in 18 minutes between a phone call from my sister and the elevator down. Because I thought, in those 18 minutes, that if I asked you, you would tell me no, and I would have to choose between honoring your no and reading the paragraph that I believed had to be read. Because I would rather have made the wrong choice in front of you and apologized for it after, than made the right choice for the wrong reason and lived with that. I'm not telling you this is a good answer. I am telling you it is the answer. Mr. Voss, Theo, please. Mr. Voss, I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me. Anything. Do not call me again. Do not write to me. Do not come to my mother's apartment. Do not invoke my paragraph in any room I am not in. If you would like to refer publicly to anything you said in the meeting, refer to it as your own paragraph, on your own page, in your own hand. Do not name an internal source. Do not allow your sister to put out a statement on Monday that references a private letter writer. Do not look for me. If, in the future, I would like to speak to you, I will speak to you. Until then, please leave me alone." "All right," he said. "Mr. Voss?" "All right, Maren." She hung up. He set the phone down on the desk. He did not move. After some time, he opened the drawer where he had put the folded note that said, "I am not going to contact her." And he took the note out. And he laid the note on the desk beside the photocopy of Section 3 with Maren Avila's handwriting on the back. He looked at the two pieces of paper side by side. He read his own handwriting. He read hers. He did not pick up the phone again. He picked up the brass pin instead. He turned it once. He held it. Saturday afternoon was the kind of May afternoon that arrives in Brooklyn unannounced and makes a person reconsider what a coat is for. The sky over Sunset Park was the color of a clean bowl. The trees on Fifth Avenue had finally remembered to be trees. The fish market downstairs from her mother's apartment had set out 2 folding chairs on the sidewalk and was running a sale on bluefish for reasons that had to do with the delivery rather than the weather. Maren walked the 8 blocks from the train at Pier 6 to the entrance of the Mill Ridge Tower at 2:20 in the afternoon. She walked with her hands in the pockets of the same coat she had walked home in on Thursday evening, and she walked at the pace of a woman who had decided what she was going to say at the door and was no longer adjusting it on the way. She had not slept on Friday night. She had not slept because at 4:15 on Saturday morning, after she had spent 2 hours arguing with herself on her mother's couch, she had picked up her phone and reread the small, careful sentence in the margin of the photocopy that she had taken back from the bottom of the canvas bag. "I do not know if this paragraph means what I think it means." And she had understood, in that very small and very specific way that arrives only at 4:15 in the morning, that the man who had written that sentence in the margin had been telling her the truth. The lobby of the Mill Ridge Tower was a polished slab of grey stone, with 1 security desk and 1 elevator bank, and a small fig tree in a pot. The man at the security desk looked up. "I would like," Maren said, to leave an envelope for Theo Voss. I would like to be told whether he is in the building. Your name? Maren Avila. The man at the security desk did not pick up the phone. The man at the security desk did not look at the elevator bank. The man at the security desk looked at her for one slow count, then said very quietly, Mr. Voss is in the building. Mr. Voss said, if a woman by your name came down to this desk at any point on Saturday, please send her up. Mr. Voss said, on no other condition, but on this one condition, he would like to be interrupted. She looked at him. He told you my name. He told the desk your name on Friday at 1:15. She walked across the polished grey stone. She rode the elevator alone. She did not adjust the small canvas bag against her hip. She did not press her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her throat. He was waiting at the elevator on the 34th floor. He was not wearing a jacket. He had a small grid notebook in one hand. He had his other hand in his pocket, around what she could not see but suspected, by the way his thumb moved, was something small and worn, and not much larger than the cap of a pen. Maren. Mr. Voss. All right. He walked her down the corridor to the room with the long oak desk. He did not offer her a chair right away. He stood for a moment in the doorway, with the desk between them, and she watched him do a small, careful thing she would think about a long time later. He closed the door behind her, and then he opened it again, 2 careful inches, as though he were leaving a window for the room. I would like to walk, she said. All right. They went down to the street. He left the notebook on the desk. He took his coat off the hook by the door anyway. They went the long way to the waterfront, 11 blocks west and then south along the river, and they did not talk until they had reached the far end of Pier 6, where the cold green bench was that he had read the 3rd paragraph of her letter on 3 days earlier, and where a small Cuban boy was practicing a flag routine for some entirely separate occasion, with a small flag the color of a coral reef. They sat, not on the cold green bench, on the broad, flat concrete at the end of the railing, with their feet over the riverside and their hands on the lip of the concrete, in the company of the boy with the flag. She said after some time, Why did you come to my mother's apartment, Mr. Voss? Because I had been failing to write that paragraph for 9 months, and a woman I had never met wrote it in 5 sentences on a Tuesday morning. Wren told me that morning I would steal it if I called you, and the only way I knew not to steal it was to make you the author of the version I read. By Thursday, the lawyers had given me a version that made the practice reportable instead of impossible. I sat at my desk for 19 minutes and tried to write the right version. I could not. I cannot say a sentence about a man lost on a floor that does not turn, in my hand, into an apology for the company that owned the floor. I needed somebody who had never been the company's daughter. Mr. Voss. Theo. Mr. Voss. The lobby man told me you left my name at the desk on Friday at 1:15. I left it at 1:15 because at 1:14 you told me on the phone not to call you, and I needed to leave a way for you to come if you decided you wanted to come. I could not leave a phone number with you because you had told me not to call. I left a door. I would have left the door open until October. I would have left the door open until the 2nd vote in October. Maren. She looked at the river. She did not look at him. The river was the color of cold steel. My mother told me on Thursday night, she said, that she had buried 4 of you in her own life. I am sorry. You are the one who said the sentence in the meeting on Friday at 12:32. The sentence about losing the vote on the record. I watched the trade publication transcript run a paraphrase of that sentence at 12:35. I've read the sentence about 20 times. I would like to know whether you knew, when you said the sentence in the room, that the sentence was going to be on a trade publication's website by 12:35. No. You did not write that sentence for the website. No. I wrote it for the minutes, and for one woman in a kitchen in Sunset Park, who I knew would be watching the trade publication transcript on her mother's small television, because there was no other room I could speak to her in. I wrote it for one room and one woman. The website was an accident. She thought about this. She thought about it for a long count. Mr. Voss. Maren. You will not put my name on anything you write. You will not refer to a private letter writer. You will not allow your sister to put out a statement on Monday with the words, "a courageous floor employee," or "an internal source." You will refer to paragraph 3 on your own page, in your own hand. You will lose the vote in October if you have to lose it. You will not look for me between now and October. If, between now and October, I would like to find you, I will find you. Until then, you will leave me alone. All right. You are not going to argue with me. No. All right. The Cuban boy with the flag finished his routine. He looked over at them expectantly. They clapped. They clapped for some time. The Cuban boy's small grin was the color of a coral reef. He took a bow. He went back to the beginning of his routine, with the seriousness of an 8-year-old who has been told by a serious woman in a corner of the park that his routine will not become a routine unless he runs it through 3 more times. Theo watched the boy. He said after a while, "There is a Polish counter at the south end of Sunset Park. On 5th. On 5th. They run a pierogi special on Saturdays after 3. Mr. Voss. I am not famous for being funny." She looked at him sideways. He was looking at the river. He had a small, careful expression on his face that did not quite resolve into anything she could call by a name. The expression sat between his eyebrows for one short breath, and then went away, the way the expression of a man who has tried a joke and would prefer the joke to die quietly goes away. She did not smile. She came close. "Mr. Voss." "Yes." "I am going to go home now. I am going to walk to the train. You are going to stay on this bench until I am at the train. After that, you will do what you like with your Saturday. But you are not going to follow me. You are not going to walk me to the train. Yes?" "Yes." She stood up. She did not press her thumb into the base of her throat. She walked the long way back along the railing, up the path and up the hill, and she did not look back. She bought a pierogi at the counter on 5th Avenue. The smell of the warm dough was the same smell that had drifted up through her casement on Tuesday morning, and had made her, against her will, think of her mother folding the bakery apron on the kitchen table on a Sunday 22 years ago. She ate it standing at the counter. She did not cry. She had decided on the walk up from the river that she would not cry until she was on her mother's couch with the striped quilt, and even then, only the careful kind. Theo Voss did not follow her. He did not stand up from the broad, flat concrete at the end of the railing for almost 40 minutes. The Cuban boy with the flag finished his routine 3 more times. The May light over the river became a slightly different May light. He turned the brass pin over in his pocket. He did not say his father's name out loud. When he finally walked back to the tower, he stopped at the small kiosk and bought a black coffee he did not really want, and called his sister Wren. "I lost the vote," he said. "I know," said Wren. "It is in the minutes." "I walked her to the river. I did not walk her to the train." She told me a Polish counter on 5th Avenue does pierogi after 3. "She told you, or you told her?" "She told me." "Then we are not entirely without hope," said Wren, "for our Saturdays." The article came down at 3 minutes past 9 on Sunday morning, on the homepage of a paper she did not normally read. Maren saw it, because her phone vibrated on the corner of the painted table while she was still in her pajamas making coffee, and the vibration was the particular 3-pulse pattern her phone used for direct text messages. And the message was from Thomas Reyes, whose number had been in her phone for 4.5 years, and whose pattern was to text once a year on her birthday in November. The message was 4 words long. The message said, "You should see this." She tapped the link. The link opened to a feature in the Sunday paper's Labour section, a long piece by a staff writer she had read twice before, on the practice of retroactive payslip edits across 3 boroughs. The piece named Heartline Industries. It quoted, in a pull quote at the top, the sentence from her own letter about the cost of a single subway ride. It named her by her full name and her former title. It named the floor she had worked on. And it included a photograph of her, lifted from a community college brochure from 9 years ago, with her hair pulled back and her chin set, and a stack of folded white aprons under one arm. The piece said, in its 3rd paragraph, according to 2 sources at Heartline Industries familiar with the matter, the resignation letter that prompted the disclosure was leaked into the broader policy conversation by Theo Voss, founder of Mileridge Group, after Mr. Voss elected on Friday to read a paraphrased version of a paragraph from the letter into the minutes of a closed Mileridge board meeting. Mr. Voss is understood to have known the source of the paragraph at the time of the meeting. Mr. Voss had no comment by press time. Maren read the 3rd paragraph twice. She read it 3 times. She put the phone face down on the painted table. She did not pick up the phone again. She did not call Theo Voss. She did not text Ren Voss, whom she did not know. She did not call Tomas Reyes back. She sat at the painted table in her pajamas. Her mother was at early mass. The apartment was the kind of quiet you noticed because there had been a voice in it 10 minutes earlier, and now there was not one. The radiator hissed. The window above the sink showed a pale, clean Sunday sky. She drank the coffee. The coffee did not taste of anything. After some time, she got up. She walked to the small bathroom at the back of the apartment. She did not look at herself in the mirror. She washed her hands. She came back. She stood at the kitchen window. She watched a small grey pigeon walk along the edge of the fire escape across the alley. She watched it for some time. Her mother came home at 10:20 with a small paper bag of pan dulce and a missal in her left hand. Her mother set the bag on the kitchen counter. Her mother set the missal on the painted table. Her mother looked at her daughter, in pajamas, at the kitchen window, and her mother said, "Mija, who has telephoned?" "No one, Mama." "You are at the window." "Yes." Her mother washed her hands at the sink. Her mother dried her hands on the dish towel that lived over the handle of the stove. Her mother poured herself a small cup of coffee, with milk warmed in the small saucepan, and her mother brought the cup to the painted table, and her mother sat down, and her mother said, "Show me." Maren picked the phone up off the table. She unlocked it. She handed it over. Her mother did not put on her reading glasses. Her mother held the phone at arm's length, the way her mother always held the phone at arm's length, and her mother read the article from the top. Her mother read the headline. Her mother read the photograph caption. Her mother read the 1st paragraph, the 2nd, the 3rd. Her mother stopped at the 3rd. Her mother read the 3rd paragraph twice. Her mother set the phone down on the painted table, face up. "Mija, Mama, this is not the truth. It is on a website that is not a trade publication, Mama. It is on the Labour page of the Sunday paper. It will be on the home page of the Sunday paper until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. It will be syndicated by Tuesday. By Tuesday, 3 more papers will have run a version of it. By Wednesday, I will have been called by 4 reporters. Heartline will have filed something by Wednesday. There is nothing in the article about what is in the 3rd paragraph that is not true. The 3rd paragraph says he leaked the letter. He did not leak the letter. There is a difference. There is a difference, Mija. The difference is the whole thing. I do not know what difference I am supposed to do anything about today, Mama." Her mother did not move. Her mother held her own small cup of coffee with both hands. Her mother looked at the article on the phone, face up on the painted table. Her mother looked at her daughter at the kitchen window in pajamas. Her mother said, "This man called you on Tuesday. This man left a voicemail. This man left a second voicemail. This man came to my door. This man left a page on my door. This man read your paragraph in his meeting on Friday. This man told you on the phone on Friday that he had read it. This man left your name at his desk on Friday afternoon. This man walked you to the river on Saturday. Mama. This man told you yesterday that he wrote a sentence in his meeting for one woman in a kitchen in Sunset Park. Mama, stop. This man is not the man in the third paragraph. Mama, listen. You do not understand. He stood up in a room of 19 people on Friday and made a decision about a paragraph I had written in 18 minutes between a phone call and an elevator. He did not ask. He took it and read it because in those 18 minutes the paragraph was useful to him. The fact that he is not the man in the third paragraph today does not change the kind of man he is. He is the kind who, in 18 minutes, will decide on my paragraph without asking because he believes the decision is right. The next time he has 18 minutes between an elevator and a meeting, he will decide on another piece of me without asking. He is not the man in the third paragraph. He is the man in the 18th minute. They are not the same. Her mother did not speak for a long count. Then her mother said, "You are saying he is your father, the way you wished your father had been. Mama, you are saying he is the man you needed to be standing in the bakery the Sunday I folded the apron, who would have stood there and read the lease aloud to me before I signed it, who would have read aloud the line about the option to purchase clause. You are saying he is the man who would have walked in at the right minute, instead of arriving on Tuesday morning at 6:17, 22 years late, in a different woman's life, with a brass pin in his pocket. Mama, please. Maren, you will sit down." Maren sat down. Her mother took her hands again. Her mother held them on her own knee. Her mother said, in the voice she had used at 9:15 on Thursday night, "The man you are afraid of, Maren, is not Theo Voss. He is the man who, 22 years ago, did not stand in a bakery and read the option to purchase clause aloud. That man is not coming back. You cannot put Theo Voss in his place and then be angry at him for not being him. Theo Voss did one thing wrong on Friday. He read a paragraph without asking. He called you 18 minutes after, told you which sentence of yours he had used, and asked if you wanted him to retract anything. He has not asked you for anything since. The third paragraph of the Sunday paper is not a paragraph he wrote. It is a paragraph somebody at Heartline paid a freelancer to write. Miha, do you understand? Mama. Miha, I understand. You are going to call him. Mama, I am not going to call him. You are going to call him. Mija. Not today. Today you are angry, and your face is on the homepage of a Sunday paper, and you cannot trust the inside of your own throat. Today, put on the clothes, walk to the church, sit in the back, come home, eat, sleep. Tomorrow morning, when the article has moved below the fold, and 6 other things in the world are louder than your face, tomorrow, Mija, you call him. You tell him you read it. You tell him what you thought. You listen. And then, on Monday morning in the kitchen, you decide whether the decision you made about him on Sunday was the decision a woman makes about a man, or a daughter makes about a father. Yes. Yes, Mama. She did not call him on Sunday. She did not call him on Sunday night. She slept 4 hours. She woke at 4:15. She lay on her mother's couch under the striped quilt and watched the lamp in the front room and listened to the radiator and pressed her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her own throat. And she did not call him. She did not call him on Monday morning either. The thing that happened on Wednesday morning 11 days after the letter had left her hands at 6:17 on a Tuesday, did not happen in a kitchen. It happened in a small, carpeted conference room on the 8th floor of Heartline Industries, in front of 3 board members, 2 outside counsel, the regional labor inspector who had received a yellow envelope 11 days earlier, and a single staff writer from the Sunday paper, asked to attend on the condition that what was said could be paraphrased without quotation. Maren was not in the room. She sat at the kitchen table in her mother's apartment, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, listening on a line set up by Adelaide Park, the new HR director at Heartline, who had walked into Quinn Whitcomb's office on Monday afternoon at 4 with a small notebook and had asked Quinn to sit down. What had happened between Monday at 4 and Wednesday at 9, Maren would only ever hear about in fragments. Charles Brand, outside counsel for Millridge, had traced the route an earlier typed draft of paragraph 3 had taken from Theo's printer, when he had absent-mindedly printed 2 copies, to the woman who cleaned his apartment Friday morning, who had photographed it for a friend whose cousin worked at Heartline as a contractor. The contractor had passed it to Quinn at 5 on Friday. Quinn had paid the freelancer at the Sunday paper by Saturday afternoon. Charles had documented all of it by 4 on Monday. Adelaide Park, on a tip from Tomas, had received that documentation in a sealed envelope at 3:30 that same afternoon. Maren did not know this. She was, on Tuesday afternoon, 3 days into a quiet decision not to know it. She had not called Theo Voss. He had not called her. He had not written. He had not, as far as anyone could tell, given a single interview in the 11 days since paragraph 3 of section 3 had failed to pass on the Friday at noon. He had, however, on Tuesday afternoon, when the Labour page article had not yet been corrected, walked down to the 14th floor of his own tower and sat in front of his own board and told them, on the record, that he would step down as the chief executive of the Millridge Group, effective immediately, and would carry the white paper, in its full revised form, to the New York-New Jersey Logistics Workers Coalition. He had told the board this because the version of paragraph 3 that was now in his hands did not belong inside a corporate strategy. He had told the board this because the woman who had written paragraph 3 had told him on a bench at Pier 6 that she was not going to do this for a living from inside a company. He had told the board this because an internal binding standard owned by the company that owned the floor would not have stopped the equipment 22 years ago, and a man in a cold green office at the head of a long table was not the man to pretend otherwise. Wren had drafted the statement. Wren had not put it out yet. Wren was waiting for the conference call on Wednesday morning. The conference call on Wednesday morning lasted 19 minutes. Charles Brand presented the documentation. The regional labor inspector asked 7 careful questions and made notes on a clipboard. The staff writer from the Sunday paper took notes in shorthand and did not look up. At the end of 19 minutes, the board recessed for 10, came back, and voted, unanimously, to ask Quinn Whitcomb to step down as Chief of Staff at Heartline, effective close of business that day, to issue a public correction at the Labour page of the Sunday paper by Thursday, and to retain a third-party auditor for an investigation of payslip practices on the Brooklyn distribution floor, beginning Monday. Maren listened to all of this with her hands wrapped around the small cup of tea. The tea was warm. The cup was warm. The kitchen was warm. Her mother had been at the painted table for the full 19 minutes, in the chair opposite hers, with her own small cup of coffee, and her mother had not said anything. The phone clicked when the conference call ended. Adelaide Park stayed on the line for the count of 3. Then Adelaide Park said, in a careful, steady voice, "Miss Avila?" "Yes." "Mr. Voss is not on the line. Mr. Voss has not been on the line. Mr. Voss has not been informed of the outcome of the meeting. Mr. Voss has been on a train to Philadelphia since 7 this morning, on a personal errand. I am giving you this information because, on Saturday morning, at the Pier 6 walkway, you asked Mr. Voss not to look for you between now and October. Mr. Voss has not looked for you. Mr. Voss is not aware that I am on a conference line with you this morning. Mr. Voss did not send me to this meeting. Mr. Reyes sent me. I am letting you know what I just heard, and I am hanging up. Adelaide? Ms. Avila? Thank you. That tracks. The line went quiet. Her mother set down the coffee cup. Her mother stood up. Her mother walked slowly, in slippers, around the painted table and stopped behind her daughter's chair and put her hand, lightly, on her daughter's shoulder. She did not say anything. She did not need to. There was a small, careful knock at the door of the apartment at 1:20 in the afternoon. Maren went to the door in her stocking feet. She had not got dressed. She opened the door, and she did not understand, for one whole, slow breath, that Quinn Whitcomb was standing on the other side of it. Quinn Whitcomb was in a long grey coat that did not have its sleeves pushed up to the elbows. Quinn Whitcomb was carrying a manila envelope. Quinn Whitcomb had her own thumb pressed lightly against the cuff of her left sleeve, where her watch was, in the same small reflex with which she had been smoothing her sleeve over her watch in the doorway of every meeting Maren had ever seen her conduct. Maren? Quinn? May I come in? No. Quinn nodded. She did not argue. She lifted the manila envelope. I was asked to leave this at your door. I asked instead to bring it. I would like, if you will let me, to set it on your mother's kitchen table. I will not stay. I will not sit. I will set it on the table. I would like you to read one line of it in front of me. Then I will go. Maren stood in the doorway for a long count. I will set it on the table myself. You will stay in the hallway. She did not close the door. She walked the manila envelope to the painted table. She set it down. Her mother had withdrawn to the front room. Her mother was not pretending to read. Her mother was watching from the doorway with the quiet, still face of a woman who had walked an apron to a kitchen table on a Sunday 22 years ago, and who had been a long time deciding since then what the apron had been folded for. Maren opened the envelope. Inside were 3 pieces of paper. The first was a signed letter of resignation from Quinn Whitcomb to the Heartline Board, copies marked to the Regional Labour Inspector and the third-party auditor. The second was a signed direction from Quinn to Heartline Payroll to fully reimburse, with interest, every retroactive payslip adjustment made on the Brooklyn distribution floor over the previous 11 months. The third was a personal check from Quinn, payable to a non-profit fund Maren did not know, in an amount equal, very precisely, to the floor supervisor budget Maren had managed at Heartline for the past 3 years. She read one line aloud. She read the last line of the second document. The line said, "No retroactive edit shall be made to any payslip on the Brooklyn distribution floor without the written consent of the affected employee. This direction is irrevocable." She read it once. She did not read it twice. She set the paper down on the painted table. She walked back to the doorway. Quinn Whitcomb was still in the hallway. Quinn Whitcomb had her thumb still pressed against the cuff of her left sleeve. Quinn Whitcomb had, very close to her left eye, the small, bright shine of a thing she had not allowed herself to do in front of any person on the Heartline floor in 19 years. Quinn Whitcomb said, very quietly, "I'm sorry, Maren. I've spent the last 11 days trying to put the wrong shape of my own life onto yours. I'm very tired of being the shape I am. I have nothing else to say to you today. I will not come back to your mother's apartment. If, in the future, you would like to find me, I will be at this address." She lifted a small white card with one address and one phone number on it. "I am going to learn, this year, how to do a different thing. I do not know yet what the different thing is. I might know by next May. Thank you for not signing the piece of paper I put on your desk. I am sorry for the piece of paper I put on your desk." Maren did not say anything for a long count. She nodded. She took the card. She closed the door gently. She walked back to the kitchen. She sat at the painted table. She set the white card on top of the 3 pieces of paper. She set both hands flat on the wood and pressed. Her mother came in from the front room. Her mother put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, lightly, briefly. Her mother walked to the small saucepan. Her mother lit the burner. Her mother put on a kettle. "Tea," her mother said. "Mama, you will drink tea. Then we will see." She drank the tea. She watched her mother peel an orange, which her mother did the way her mother peeled all oranges, in one long, unbroken curl. She did not call Theo Voss. She did not text Theo Voss. She did not write to Theo Voss. She washed her own teacup. She walked down the 4 blocks to the train. She rode the train to Pier 6. She walked the path along the river to the broad, flat concrete at the end of the railing. She sat on the concrete. She waited. Theo Voss came up the path from the south at 4:30, in the same coach he had walked beside on Saturday, with no notebook in his hand, and the brass pin not in his pocket, but in his fist. He did not see her until he was 20 feet away. He stopped. He did not come closer. "Maren." "Thea." She said it without thinking. She heard herself say it. She did not unsay it. "I am here," she said, "because I would like you to know what I gave up, before I ask anything. I am asking you to come and sit down on this concrete. I would like to know what you gave up, before I tell you anything else." He sat at the careful distance a man sits from a woman he is not allowed to touch yet. He set the brass pin on the concrete between them. He told her what he had told his board on Tuesday, about the train to Philadelphia, the small group in a back room of a labor hall who had read his white paper on Sunday night, the call to his sister at 6 that morning. He told her, last, why the brass pin was no longer in his pocket. He had carried it for 26 years. This morning, he had thought he would prefer to carry his father's name instead. He said his father's name out loud, for the first time in some years. The name was Arno. He said it the way he had said it as a 14-year-old, in his mother's kitchen, before he had decided he would never say it out loud. She did not move. She said, after some time, "Theo." "Maren." "I see you." He closed his eyes. He did not open them for a long count. The river moved beside them. A small boy with a coral-colored flag was running through a routine on the path 20 yards away, his small grin the color he had been the Saturday before. Theo opened his eyes. He looked at her. "Maren," he said. "Theo, I would like to walk you to the train." "Yes." "Yes." By the first Sunday in September, the kitchen in Sunset Park had the kind of light it got in September, which was a slightly lower light than the light of May, and the bakery apron her mother had folded on the kitchen table 22 years earlier was no longer on the back of the chair, because Maren Avila had, in late July, hung it on a small brass hook above the painted table, where it could be seen, and where her mother could be heard, twice a week, to be running her hand along the cotton on her way past the kettle. The handbook had a name on it now. The name was the Sunset Kitchen Standard. The name was Maren's mother's idea, and the name was on the cover of a small green and white booklet, the size of a pamphlet, that had been printed at the all-night copy shop 3 blocks east at a bulk rate negotiated by Tomas Reyes, who had retired from Heartline at the end of June, and who had taken, in his retirement, the unpaid job of regional liaison for the Workers' Coalition that had adopted the booklet on a Tuesday in August. The first paragraph of the booklet did not name a person. The first paragraph said, "No payslip on any floor under this standard shall be edited after a shift has closed without the written consent of the affected employee. There is no version of this practice that is acceptable with notice." The second said the same about safety walks. The third said the same about non-competes. The fourth said the same about performance improvement plans being used as instruments of silence rather than improvement. The fifth thanked, by name and with consent, the 7 floor workers who had agreed to be the original signatories. Maren Avila was the first on the list. Tomas Reyes was the second. Adelaide Park was the 7th. Quinn Whitcomb was not on the list, and would not be until May of the following year, when she would write a small, handwritten note from a town outside Albany asking, very carefully, whether she might sign as the 8th. The answer would be yes. Theo Voss was not on the list. He had asked, in June, to not be on the list. He had said, in June, on the broad, flat concrete at the end of Pier 6, where the small Cuban boy had been replaced by a slightly older girl with an entirely different flag, that the list was not his to be on. He had been carrying the brass pin in his coat pocket again by then, but in a way that had stopped being a habit and had started being a thing he carried because his father had carried it, which were 2 different things, and he had been the one to tell her so. She had written him a letter in August. It was 4 paragraphs long. It was not a resignation. It was the first paragraph of a small additional booklet on the practice of plain language settlement agreements that the coalition would publish in November. The letter was addressed to him at his apartment, by name, in her own handwriting. She had walked it down to the all-night copy shop and paid the man behind the counter $4 to put it in a bonded envelope. She had also, after some thought, sent him a copy of the page he had left on her mother's door in May. She had kept the original, taped to the inside cover of the small grid notebook, in which she did her own writing now. On the copy she had returned to him, she had written, in pencil, in the white margin beside the paragraph he had circled, in capitals, the same size as the capitals in which he had circled it. I do know what this paragraph means now. M.A. He had set the copy on the corner of the long oak desk, next to a small folded piece of paper that said, I am not going to contact her, in his own capitals, with 2 careful pencil lines drawn through the sentence. On the first Sunday in September, at 10:20 in the morning, Maren Avila stood at the painted table in the kitchen on the 2nd floor of the 4-story walk-up on a quiet block in Sunset Park, with her hands flat on the wood and a small green-and-white pamphlet in front of her, and watched her mother peel an orange in one long, unbroken curl. Theo Voss was at the door downstairs with a small paper bag in one hand and 1 warm pierogi from the Polish counter on 5th Avenue in the other hand, and the brass pin in his coat pocket. He pressed the buzzer once. She went down to let him in. She did not press her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her own throat. She had not pressed her thumb into the soft skin at the base of her own throat since the first Sunday in August. The wrong address, in the end, had turned out to be the only address that mattered.